Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. If you're tired of censorship, outraged by government abuses, and thirsty for real insights, then you're in the right place. Get ready, because here, the fight for freedom never ends. Here's your host, Professor Nick Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report podcast. This is your host, Nick Giordano. I'm glad you could join me today. Make sure that you follow and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the P.A.S. Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with your family and friends. I'm going to be talking about one of the most unreported stories out there. And this is why you tune into the P.A.S. Report, because you get the analysis that you're not going to get anywhere else. So, our media, they like to focus a lot on the gossip that exists, and we cover that sometimes here. But the truth is that there are important issues that we have to explore. And I want to ask all of you something. What if I told you the United States is sitting on trillions of dollars in critical minerals that could completely reshape our economy in the 21st century, restore our industrial dominance throughout the world, and secure our national security for decades to come? Now, if we look since 2005, the United States has been losing power and influence. That's not a secret. It's not really up for debate. The United States doesn't have the power and influence that it once did. You have our allies that take advantage of us. You have our adversaries challenging us in every way, every aspect. You have a country like China that's been gaining power and influence throughout the international community. So when I asked the question about reshaping our economy and rebuilding our industrial dominance, it sounds like a dream, because you look at what's been taking place and it seems like that can't be real, but it is real. And it's happening right now. Because the biggest underreported story in this country is the discovery of massive lithium and rare earth mineral deposits across the United States. And we're talking about materials that are essential, not optional. These are essential materials, items we use each and every single day, from smartphones to vehicles, to missile guidance systems, advanced semiconductors, our infrastructure. These aren't just rocks in the ground. They are the currency of the 21st century. And the good news is we've got them. We've got lots of them. And so what are we going to do about it? And I want to start with the big picture here, because for decades, America has outsourced its industrial base to other countries, especially when it comes to industries like tech. We have become extraordinarily dependent on adversaries to supply us with the raw materials that we need to power our modern day economy. And what do you think? China doesn't know this? They've been strategically cornering the market when it comes to rare earth minerals. And this isn't by accident, it's by design. The leadership in China, they're not dumb people. They're extraordinarily smart. It's what has led them to make huge advances over the course of the last 30 years. Over 70% of the rare earth mineral processing happens in China. And if you think they won't weaponize that dependency against us, you have not been paying attention. I mean, let's just be honest here. If China decides that they want to invade Taiwan today, do you think China's not going to cut off supplies to the United States and create supply chain shortages? Of course they will. It doesn't have to be this way, and something has changed. Quietly, without any type of media fanfare, we have seen a series of game-changing discoveries right here, right under our feet. We could go to Oregon and Nevada, where scientists uncovered what it could be the largest lithium deposit in this world. And they believe that it's worth at least $1.5 trillion, and that's a conservative estimate. Not to be outdone, California's Salton Sea holds another 18 million tons of lithium. I mean, listen, you might not like electric vehicles, but lithium isn't just used in electric vehicles. It's used in batteries that power everything. Every single one of our electronic devices that we use today, or at least most. So we're talking that this is a game changer. And it doesn't stop there. You have places like Arkansas, Wyoming, Montana. We're finding massive rare earth deposits. And I'm talking about minerals that I can't even pronounce, and I'm not even going to attempt to. But these minerals are vital, from everything, smartphones, F-35 fighter jets. Some estimates say that 30 American states. 30 American states could become richer than Dubai if we fully tap into and extract these resources. Even though the wealth aspect is important, this isn't just about money. This is about America, and it's about American sovereignty. It's about making sure the tools of our economy and our military aren't dependent on Beijing or some unelected international body that tries to infringe on our sovereignty. We saw in the 20th century what the oil boom did for American growth. These mineral discoveries have the potential to unleash a 21st century where the United States is the driver. This is an energy and tech revolution, one built on our soil, American soil, with our workers, American workers, and it serves our national interests, America first interests. And when you look at that, there's an enormous amount of optimism that we could have. But then we have another question that we have to tackle. Are we going to take advantage of these findings? Or will we let bureaucrats, eco-activists, globalist interests bury this opportunity under tons of red tape and climate guilt and this idea of environmental justice? See, that's the battle I want to explore today in this episode, because the story goes well beyond the idea of geology. It's about leadership. It's about vision. It's about where do we see the United States? Where do we want the United States to be in this 21st century as we're in a global competition? It's about whether this country still has the guts to act in its own best interest rather than serve the interests of all these other nations around the world. I'm going to break this all down. I'll break down the specific discoveries, where they are, what they may be worth, how they compare globally, and we'll talk about some of the obstacles that we face. Let's get into the good stuff, because what's been discovered across the United States in recent months, it's not just impressive, it's historic. We're talking about a seismic shift in the global energy and technological landscape, a seismic shift in the global economy, because the United States is suddenly holding a royal flush if we care to exert our power and influence. And I want to start with the headliner, because the McDermott caldera straddling the Oregon and Nevada border, scientists believe this area could hold the single largest lithium deposit in the entire world. And estimates say that we're looking at anywhere from 20 to 40 million metric tons of lithium. 20 to 40 million. And that's at current demand levels. Okay, so as demand continues to increase, as more and more electronic devices rely on lithium, as cars need batteries, lithium batteries, well, the value is only going to go up. Trillions of dollars. And to put that in perspective, if lithium was oil, we'll say, according to scientists, the McDermott fields would be the Saudi Arabia of batteries. And the kicker is, the deposit is sitting in America, meaning that if we had any common sense left in this country, we would fast-track development and finally move the needle on energy independence. But that's not all, because in California's Salton Sea, buried beneath the surface, estimated 18 million tons of lithium. 18 million tons. And the deposit, it can be valued at roughly $540 billion. Now, some believe that's a very conservative estimate. It's actually a lot higher than that. You go to Arkansas. Thanks to a new machine learning model developed by the United States Geological Survey, we've discovered a potential lithium bonanza in the Smackover Formation. And there's no dollar figure attached to this yet because it's still early. But early estimates suggest it could meet 9 times the projected global demand for lithium by 2030. 9 times. That's not a footnote. That should be a headline. But you don't see it because the media doesn't report on it. They'd rather waste your time on Elon Musk's black eye in the Oval Office. And then we got the rare earth minerals. You go to Montana. The Sheep Creek site boasts the highest grade neodymium deposit in the United States. Now, this mineral is critical for everything from iPhones to F-35 fighter jets. We're talking about rare earth oxides that have a purity content nearing 9%, which is extraordinarily high. It also means there's lower cost to process it, to refine it, to be used in the products. You go to Wyoming's Halleck Creek, and we see even more minerals there. It's been estimated to contain 2.34 billion metric tons of rare earth minerals. This is the kind of deposit that could redefine the rare earth market globally if we develop it properly. And I can't forget Magnet Cove, Arkansas. Arkansas is a big winner today. That contains a significant amount of other rare earth minerals, including titanium reserves. Another example of how underappreciated U.S. geology is. It's now making a comeback. But let me zoom out here because we have to talk about the impact of this. Trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars. And if we took it full advantage of these resources, we'd be looking at an economic impact that rivals the shale oil revolution, except this time it's even bigger than that. It's not just about energy. It's economics, it's technology, it's defense, it's manufacturing, it's geopolitical leverage over the rest of the world, and I'll break it down for you. First of all, it creates a massive new revenue stream to the government between corporate taxes, federal royalties, licensing, job creation. The United States government could bring in hundreds of billions of dollars, if not over $1 trillion annually in new revenue. Think about that. This could be one of the biggest non-tax sources of federal income in modern history if we manage it right. And that's a big question, I know. But if we do it right, you're talking about hundreds of billions to over $1 trillion in revenue at a time where our deficit is at all-time highs. The second advantage, industrial reshoring and high-paying jobs. These discoveries have the power to reignite domestic manufacturing here in the United States. We can process, we can refine, and we can build right here at home. We could create high-paying jobs and understand. This is what aggravates me. We see the AI revolution taking place, and we know that AI is going to disrupt a lot of job markets out there, particularly white-collar jobs. And nobody's talking about, well, how do we avoid that? Well, this is one way you could avoid it. And so why not exploit this? This is a Rust Belt revitalization program on steroids. And unlike green jobs that never seem to come to fruition, they never materialize, these are tied to real market demand, real things that people want, that people will pay for, that people care about. Another benefit that this could do is we've seen President Trump go hard after countries about the trade imbalances that exist. You look at countries, a lot of countries have trade surpluses against us. You look at the tariffs, and he's using tariffs as a mechanism to try and equalize that. For decades, the United States has run massive trade deficits. It's not a secret. We buy more than we sell. We are the largest consumers on this planet, and so it's understandable to a certain degree. But this is one of the few industries where we could become a global exporter again. China, and I'll constantly bring up China. They're currently the king of rare earths, and they have no competition out there. If we extract these resources, they got to compete against us. They got to compete with the American supply chain. That gives us more dominance, right? Because China already has to rely on us. But now if they have to compete with us in the rare earths, it's going to significantly weaken them. It's going to hurt their economy. It's going to blunt the power and influence that they've gained over the course of the last couple of decades. It's going to influence the power that they've gained in the global tech arena and as they emerge in the defense sectors. So it includes national security as well. You can't build advanced weaponry, advanced weapon systems without these rare earth minerals. You can't build out the AI networks without these rare earth minerals. You can't upgrade our infrastructure without them. Understand that if conflict ever broke out because China tries to recapture Taiwan, well, guess what? They're going to cut off the rare earth exports to us. We'd be scrambling, and there's no one that could fill that void. So why do we have to have a reliance on these? Finds will allow us to fortify our defense supply chains. It reduces our dependency on adversarial nations like China. And finally, it allows our national security posture to match our national security rhetoric. So the bottom line is that we are sitting on an economic and strategic treasure trove. If we harness it, this country, we can usher in a new era of economic dominance. We can usher in an era of technological leadership like never seen before. If you think the last 5 years, a lot has changed, imagine what the next 5 years will bring. And we could be energy independent. We could revive industries. We could reduce inflationary pressures in the United States, cut trade deficits, and maybe, just maybe, we would generate enough growth and revenue to make a dent in our national debt. See, there's only a couple ways that you could tackle the $36.7 trillion national debt. You could either do it by cutting government spending, maybe raising taxes, or you could do it by economic productivity. Now, I prefer cutting spending. That's the easiest way to do it. But imagine we could cut some spending and at the same time we spur enormous economic growth based on the rare earth minerals. We could actually have the debt paid off pretty quickly if we have the will to do it. And that's the catch. We've seen things like this play out before. Resources will get discovered, excitement will build, and then all of a sudden the bureaucracy comes in and they kill it. This fourth branch of government that has somehow become more powerful than the other branches of government. It's not responsive to Congress, and Congress is too cowardly to exercise its oversight abilities. When you look at the bureaucracy, a lot of them act largely independent from the president. Just look at the last administration with the auto pen. And it's not just the bureaucracy that's the problem. You got lawsuits that will pile up. The green energy lobby screams, and before you know it, it's another missed opportunity. You got 5,000 pages of federal paperwork you got to go through, and you got to answer questions and check off boxes. You got to do your environmental impact studies, and God forbid there's a fish that nobody ever heard of that's completely irrelevant. That's going to stop a project dead in its tracks. If we don't confront the regulatory insanity head on, none of the rare earth potential that we have is going to matter. This is the United States government. It makes no sense. Common sense doesn't exist anymore. You don't have intelligent people that actually run this government. There's no wisdom. Instead, it's based on the intelligentsia, people that think they're smart but don't understand their ass from their elbow. And this is where you can spend $1 billion discovering a vital resource, critical resource that you need, but then you got to wait 20 years for a permit to touch it. That's the stupidity that we're dealing with. And if you're lucky, in that process, you're only going to be sued about 10 times by different environmental groups. You're only going to have different activist organizations coming at you, trying to protest and shut everything down. And then you have to worry about the insects and the fish, because in the world of federal permitting, God forbid you find a 3-inch guppy with a Latin name that you never even heard of. It's going to delay the entire national project indefinitely. And that's the amazing part. And I want to be clear before the leftists start screaming and all the environmentalists start screaming. I am not saying destroy the environment. Nobody wants dirty water or dirty air. Nobody wants to live on a scorched earth, all right? We understand that. But the problem with the environmentalists is they'll say one thing, right? You can't do this here. You can't have the lithium mines here. You can't have the cobalt mines here. But you can do it in other countries and destroy other countries, right? That's just fine. Even though that we could do it cleaner and more efficient than anywhere else. It was like oil under the last administration. The Biden administration, they wanted to go with the green energy, push all these electric vehicles out. And at the same time, they wanted to hamper the oil industry. So they shut down drilling in the Gulf. They shut down drilling in certain areas throughout the United States. But what did they do? Did demand for oil actually get lower? No, demand kept on increasing. So what did Biden do? Well, he struck a deal with Venezuela to get Venezuelan oil, prop up Maduro regime. Now, does that make any sense? That we prop up his regime, let Venezuela extract the oil, even though they're doing it very inefficiently, and they certainly don't have the environmental protections that we have here in the United States. But see, that's the way the left wing is. They don't really care. They're environmentalists. They only care about what's in front of them, what they could virtue signal over here in the United States. Doesn't matter how what's happening in other countries. So it's all nonsense. But I want to make it clear. What we have now isn't environmental protection. It's an environmental obstructionism. It's weaponized red tape that serves as a proxy war for activists who want to shut down entire industries that they don't like. And when you pair that with the federal government that is obsessed with climate optics, all the grant funding going towards climate change, and then the ESG checkboxes, you got a recipe for paralysis. There's no other country like this in the world. And I want to give you some numbers because I think it's a really good example. You look at the United States, and according to the Fraser Institute, the United States ranks the worst amongst the developed nations for permitting delays. The worst. In the United States, it takes upwards of 7 to 10 years, sometimes more, just to get the federal okay to begin any type of mining operations. Now, and that's just to get the federal permissions. Understand, you still got to get state permissions that could take even longer. And let's contrast that with another country. Let's look at Australia. So I don't think anyone's going to mistake Australia for a conservative bastion that operates on the great principles of limited government and ideas of conservatism. Australia is to the left of the United States. It's more liberal than the United States. Well, in Australia, you get a mining permit within 1 to 2 years. Now, I would say even 2 years is unreasonable, to be honest with you. You should be able to get one within 6 months to a year. Canada is a little slower than Australia, but they still beat us. Again, not a conservative country by any stretch of the imagination. And then we're wondering why China dominates the rare earth market. I'll give you another example. Over 4,000 mining-related permits right now in the United States are currently in limbo. Permits have been applied for. Nothing's happened with them. Thousands of projects that can't move forward because nobody knows what's going on with the permits. Now, understand, these thousands of projects translate into thousands of jobs, and yet they're frozen in bureaucratic ember. Why? Well, because the process, because the bureaucracy, the bureaucrats. Everything's slow walk. To them, it's fine, because they're still getting their paycheck, right? The miner might not be getting their paycheck. The bureaucrats are still getting their paycheck. You take the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. Sounds great on paper. Okay, we're going to review the impact of this project. We're going to protect the environment, and it all sounds wonderful. But on average, one single NEPA review, this isn't all the environmental reviews. This is just a NEPA review. One NEPA review takes an average of 4.5 years to complete. And that's before all the lawsuits start rolling in to delay the project further. So first you have to do the NEPA thing. Once the NEPA study's done, well, that's when the lawsuits kick in. So you're talking 4.5 years on average just for a NEPA review. You have other environmental studies being conducted. After 4.5 years, lawsuits start flowing in, and it grinds the project to a halt. Why would any company invest billions of dollars in equipment, in men, in labor, in land, when they're not going to get a return on investment for at least a decade, if ever? You want to get on the state level duplication. I'm in New York State, heavily regulated state. Environmental checks could take upwards of a decade to get done. It's ridiculous. And you have agencies, EPA, Department of Energy, Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife, tribal consultations, the state levels, all these people, all in consultation and all with their own requirements. I mean, can you muddle this anymore? I want to look at the fish, right? Because I brought up fish before. So let's look at the fish. Let's look at amphibians. In Nevada, a massive lithium project has been delayed for years, in part because of concerns over an amphibian, the Dixie Valley toad, a toad that lives near a geothermal area. Now, one lawsuit claims the toad is going to be adversely affected by geothermal development connected to the lithium extraction. Look, I'm all for biodiversity. I don't want to see our planet harmed. But at some point, we also have to be adults. We have to look at this and say, hey, we got a $1.5 trillion lithium deposit here. Maybe we could take this toad to another swamp that they could live at. Or maybe we let the process of natural selection go forward. It's called the food chain for a reason. It's called survival of the fittest for a reason. And yet we constantly see projects get derailed because of obscure species that no one's ever heard of, except for, some specialists out there. And this is the absurdity of the environment that we have to deal with. Like, what other country in the world would harm itself? And we're talking about trillions of dollars in economic harm because of an animal that nobody heard about. It's crazy. There's no common sense. We see stalling and debating. Oh my God, a butterfly migration. It went 10 degrees to the east. Shouldn't have done that. Got to stop all building here. What do you think China does? Well, China builds. China extracts. China builds, extracts, grows. China builds, extracts, grows, becomes more powerful, becomes more influential, and then dominates. So the worst part is that the same people who block these projects here in the United States are harming our own national security. And not only are they harming our own national security, they're hypocrites too, because these are the same ones that demand this rapid transition to electric vehicles and green energy, digital infrastructure, all of which requires massive amounts of lithium and cobalt and rare earth elements. You can't demand electric vehicles for everyone and then oppose the very materials that we need to make them. It doesn't make any sense. And it's not just the environmental groups. It's not just the bureaucracy. We also have to look at this idea of ESG, environmental, social, and governance criteria that banks and investments firms use. You know, these mining companies, they don't have all this cash on hand where they could fund their own operations. They got to take out loans. And when they go to these banks, when they go to the investment firms, they lay out their plans. The banks and investment firms that used to care about things like a return on investment don't care anymore. If you're not green enough, poof, no money for you. Again, it amazes me. These people, they're not bright. They're virtue signalers. Because the kicker, you have many of these mineral projects that actually, if you think about it, help a green economy. They power the very systems that ESG investors claim to support, and yet their projects are still being blacklisted because some pinhead, mostly a coastal elite, they think that mining's like a 13th century operation or something. And so what happens? If we don't extract and exploit these resources, what happens? Well, we continue our dependency on China. China continues to make gains in the international community. But it gets worse than that because these lands don't stay around forever. Someone's going to buy them up. And at what point will a country like China come in, start buying these lands? Look, they already bought farmland, didn't they? And I want people to understand this, because if our companies can't even get permits, Chinese companies aren't really going to get permits either. But then again, they bribe people, so maybe they will. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that we can take advantage of our own resources, what we have under our feet. And so no mining company is going to buy that land, invest in that land, get the permits to try and extract these because it's just not profitable to them. Chinese company comes in, buys the rights to the land, and they don't care about extraction. They don't want to extract these minerals because the less minerals that are on the market, the higher the cost of the minerals that they're selling on, the more money they're making as a country. So you'll see foreign entities buy up these lands, not to exploit them to make money. Some may, but mainly so that we don't serve as competition to them. See, they don't play by our rules. Understand that. That's not the way the world works. They cut deals, and they understand how the world works. And Congress is mostly silent, right? We hear nothing from Congress. Because let's face it, our elected officials, they chase whatever the biggest story is. That's what our elected officials are going to focus on. They're not statesmen and women. They're politicians. And so the critical issues they tend to ignore, like how many hearings has our Congress held on AI's potential impact in the employment market in every single white-collar sector? How many congressional hearings have there been? Sure, there's probably been a couple, but that's about it. And has there been any action from those hearings? Have we seen any legislation or anything? No. Why? Because Congress doesn't know anything. They can't explain AI. They don't understand the technology, and they don't care because they want the stories that are going to get them on television. That's what they care. And there's a real danger here because we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to lead the next economic revolution, but we're chained down by a bloated, irrational, activist-driven regulatory regime that would rather protect stupid little fish than the American people. So the question is, what do we do about it? And I'm going to talk about that in the next segment because the only thing that can cut through this mess is bold leadership. We're going to need real vision, real authority, real grit to turn these mineral discoveries into an American story. This could be the key to not only revitalizing our economy, but rebuilding our industrial base, restoring American dominance in the world. And I think most importantly, give the next generation of Americans hope and opportunity that they could live a better lives, that they could have more success than we did during our time. But the multi-million dollar, or I guess trillion-dollar question in this case is, will we act or will we squander this moment away like we've done so many times before? And we've been down this road before. Let's not forget, under the Biden administration, none of these things were moving forward. The administration was beholden to the radical environmental wing of the Democratic Party. They spent more time pushing climate equity and environmental justice than ensuring we had the raw materials needed to compete in the 21st century. And while China was building mines and refineries and ports at lightning speed, we were holding stakeholder meetings about the carbon impact of lithium trucks in the United States. See, that wasn't leadership. It was paralysis by politics, and it put us at risk. And let's be honest, in a sense, we haven't had leadership in decades. Okay, when was the last time a nuclear power plant was built here in the United States? I really want people to think about that. Nuclear power, it's the cleanest, most efficient source of fuel. And a power plant hasn't been built for 40 years? At the time, the last power plant that was built was maybe population of about 250 million people. Today, we're a population of 350 million people. When was the last major oil refinery we built here in the United States? Late 1970s. Our population has nearly doubled since then. So demand has increased. Back then, you didn't have all these electronic powered devices that needed to be plugged in. Sure, we've made upgrades to facilities, but we haven't built new ones, and China's building new ones every week. So we're behind the eight ball on this. But now, with President Trump back in office, there's a new sheriff in town. And there's a radically different approach to American energy, to the American economy, to America first. So within the first few months, we've seen President Trump sign an executive order, immediate measures to increase American mineral production. And this wasn't just a symbolic executive order. This launched a full-blown federal strategic initiative to fast-track mineral development in the United States throughout the entire country. And the newly empowered National Energy Dominance Council is chaired by Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, smart guy, and he's now overseeing critical mineral infrastructure projects within the United States with the explicit purpose of cutting through the regulatory red tape that's choked innovation for decades. And Trump didn't stop there. He invoked Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. This was designed to assess the national security risks posed by our reliance on imported foreign minerals. So now the United States is finally treating critical minerals like what they should have been treated as all along, national security assets. We're seeing mining projects in Nevada, Arkansas, California, and Montana. They've been added to the Fast 41 program. This is a program that's designed to speed up environmental reviews and approvals. And that's actual progress, not holding nonsense press conferences. But most importantly, President Trump has moved to block foreign adversaries, particularly China-linked companies, from acquiring American mineral rights through legal loopholes. And I think that's so important because what's the point of discovering trillions of dollars worth of lithium if we let Beijing come in and dig it out of the ground? That doesn't make any sense. So what Trump is doing is similar to what he did in his first term. He's cutting back the regulations, and that is what leadership looks like. It's not theoretical. But the truth is, it's still going to take a fight. Because while Trump is trying to cut through the red tape, understand, the entrenched bureaucracy is not just going to roll over. The same ones that stalled every major energy project for the last 30 years isn't just going to say, all right, we give up, Trump's in office. You still have career bureaucrats that are going to slow walk these projects. You have activist judges. Just look at what's going on right now. Every single thing the Trump administration does is getting challenged in the courts, and you have some district court judge that's issuing a nationwide injunction. Now, ultimately, it will get overturned once it gets to the Supreme Court. But when the district court judge issues this nationwide injunction, everything stops. It grinds to a halt, and that's what this is designed to do, slow things down. Why? Because you wait Trump out. Only has 3.5 years left in office. Wait him out. Then you have the left-wing environmental groups. They're going to desperately try and delay and derail progress. They're going to send so many lawsuits to try and tie the Trump administration up and the mining companies up in courts that nothing ever gets done. So these are the same groups that under Biden, they prioritized that Toto was talking about in Nevada, over a $1.5 trillion lithium deposit. Same groups that argued building a rare earth refinery might hurt the cultural significance of an area. I'm not joking. You can't make this stuff up. It's so ridiculous. And that's why we need more than just federal leadership. We need governors. We need state legislative bodies, local officials to get in the fight. It's not just them that have to get in the fight. We need Congress to get in the fight. You know, President Trump could try and deregulate things for the next 3.5 years, and that's great. I applaud him, and I hope he does it. But what does it matter if the next administration just undoes it all and increases the bureaucratic regulations like Biden did? We need to get into the fight. You need investors, entrepreneurs that are ready to build. Get into the fight. Citizens like you and I, get into the fight. Right now, you have an entire generation that's coming up that has no hope. They don't understand what their purpose is. And they believe that they'll be the first generation that is worse off than the previous generation, not better off. See, in the United States, we almost had like this unspoken contract that every subsequent generation is going to have more than the previous generation. Well, the new generation is demoralized. What would you rather? Would you rather your child grows up, becomes an adult, and is still living in your house because they can't afford a home, they can't find a good, solid job, they can't find a well-paying job, so they can't raise a family, they're not making money? Or would you rather we exploit these minerals, these resources, build an enormous amount of wealth, high-paying jobs in the United States, where they get to move out of your house, and they get to buy their own house? Not only did they get to buy their own house, they get to start a family because they could afford to have a family now. So we as citizens reject the fear-mongering and understand. You want to rebuild America, get in the fight. The stakes are so high, and the stakes aren't just domestically here in the United States. China's watching, India's watching, the world is watching. The intergovernmental organizations are watching. The globalists are watching. The green energy lobby is watching. The climate warriors are watching. The same people, the same multinational interests that got rich off of outsourcing and manufacturing, they're watching. And they'd love nothing more than to see the moment pass quietly into the bureaucratic abyss. We can't let that happen. So we need to support the administration's push to streamline mineral development, to deregulate, to cut through all the BS red tape. We need to demand Congress gets involved and codifies a cutback in regulations within the United States. Make sure that these agencies don't go outside their statutory authority. We need to make sure that Congress locks in protections that foreign ownership over American mineral assets cannot take place, that these are American assets that have to benefit America and the American people. We have to stop with the ridiculous lawsuits, the delay tactics, the obstructionists. See, remind everyone out there, this isn't about rocks. This is about our sovereignty. It's about our security. It's about our economic survival. Because we're not just sitting on mineral deposits. We're sitting on the potential for the foundation of American dominance for the next century. But it's up to us. We can't let the opportunity slip away because the bureaucrats want to hold listening sessions about what animal they're going to offend. We've got the resources. We've got the capabilities. We've got the knowledge. We've got the competence. All we need to do is get the will. Now, if you found the content of this episode informative, please leave the P.A.S. report a 5-star rating. Take 30 seconds to write a good review, particularly on Apple Podcasts. And remember, nobody's really talking about this. Not conservative outlets, not liberal outlets. Nobody's talking about this. That's what we bring. We focus on some of the gossip. But I also bring you important analysis that no one else is talking about. So please leave a review. I always appreciate it. And share this episode with others. Share with your family, friends, post it on social media. For now, I want to thank you for joining me, and I'll be back on Wednesday with another great episode of the P.A.S. Report podcast.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report. Don't forget to rate, share, and hit that subscribe button. That way you'll never miss an episode. For more exclusive content and updates, visit us at PASreport.com and follow Professor Giordano on all social media platforms at P.A.S. Report.